Alex Turner, at 32, had carved out a life defined by momentum and precision in the heart of Chicago's financial district. His days were a seamless blend of high-stakes meetings and strategic negotiations, each move calculated to propel him further up the ladder. His sleek apartment, perched on the 27th floor of a modern glass tower, mirrored his personality, minimalistic, controlled, and meticulously organized. Trophies from sales contests and framed certificates lined one wall, silent testaments to the ambition that fueled his every step. Mornings began with the exactness of a well-oiled machine. Alex would slide out of bed at 6 a.m., don a tailored navy suit, and prepare a strong black coffee while scanning overnight market reports. The city was waking up beneath him as he reviewed his calendar, mentally rehearsing pitches and client conversations. By 8 a.m., he was already deep into emails, calls, and strategy sessions, his focus unyielding. His social life, too, was an extension of this drive. Evenings found him at upscale bars and exclusive networking events, where he maneuvered through conversations with a practiced ease. Each handshake was a potential opportunity, each smile, a subtle assertion of his place in a world that rewarded power and control. Alex thrived on the energy, the constant challenge, the sense that he was always pushing towards something greater. Yet beneath the polished exterior, there was a restless edge. The trophies and accolades were markers of success, but also reminders of the relentless pace he maintained. Relationships were often secondary, sacrificed to late nights and early mornings. His few close friends noted his tendency to prioritize work above all else, but Alex brushed off their concerns with a confident smile. Failure was not something he entertained. It was a distant concept, irrelevant to someone who had always been on top of his game. The apartment reflected this mindset, a sanctuary stripped of distractions. A sleek leather chair faced a wall-mounted monitor where stock tickers ran continuously. A small shelf held a curated selection of books on leadership and finance, their spines as sharp and purposeful as his approach to life. Even the lighting was carefully chosen to enhance focus and clarity. It was a space designed for control and achievement, mirroring the rigid structure Alex imposed on himself. Despite the intensity of his schedule, Alex felt a deep satisfaction in the rhythm of his routine. He relished the challenge of closing deals, the thrill of winning over skeptical clients. Success was not just a goal, but a validation of his worth, a tangible measurement of his intelligence and determination. Every contract signed and target met reinforced the narrative he had built around himself, that he was capable, unstoppable, and destined for more. But as the months wore on, subtle cracks began to appear beneath the surface. The pressure to perform mounted, deadlines grew tighter, and competition intensified. Alex found himself working longer hours, often skipping meals and sacrificing sleep to stay ahead. The trophies on the wall began to feel less like achievements and more like weights, reminders of the ever-rising bar he set for himself. Still, he pushed forward, convinced that any sign of weakness would undermine everything he had built. Vulnerability was foreign territory, something to be avoided at all costs. His identity was wrapped tightly around success, and admitting to doubt or failure was unthinkable. The world he inhabited was one where mistakes were costly, and perfection was expected. In this high-octane environment, Alex's relationships were transactional at best. Conversations with colleagues were dominated by strategy and results. Friendships were often superficial, filtered through the lens of networking advantage. Even romantic connections were fleeting, disrupted by conflicting schedules and his inability to slow down. He told himself that this was the price of ambition, a temporary sacrifice on the path to greatness. Yet, in quiet moments, rare and fleeting, Alex caught glimpses of something missing. A pang of loneliness during a late-night ride home, the hollow feeling after a celebratory toast at a company party. These moments were quickly buried beneath the noise of his workload and the demands of the next challenge. He had no time to dwell on what might be lacking, no space for reflection beyond the next goal. One Tuesday morning, as dawn crept over the city skyline, Alex stood by his floor-to-ceiling window, coffee in hand, watching the streets awaken below. The city was alive with possibility, but inside him, a subtle tension simmered. He told himself that this was normal, pressure was part of the game. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet question began to take shape. Was there more to success than this relentless chase? For now, the answer remained elusive. The trophies still gleamed, the certificates still hung perfectly aligned. His calendar was full, his phone buzzing with messages and invitations. Alex Turner was, by all external measures, the embodiment of success. But beneath the polished exterior, the foundations of his carefully constructed world were beginning to tremble, setting the stage for challenges he had yet to face. The morning of the presentation arrived with the usual buzz of anticipation, but beneath Alex Turner's composed exterior, a subtle unease had begun to take root. Weeks of preparation had led to this moment, the chance to secure a major client whose portfolio could elevate both his standing and the firm's prestige. The conference room was sleek and modern, the polished table reflecting the glow of the projector as Alex set up his slides with practiced efficiency. His team had rallied behind him, offering last-minute suggestions and encouragement, each voice blending into a background hum that Alex barely registered. He thrived in these moments, the spotlight on him, the opportunity to demonstrate his mastery. As the clients filtered in, exchanging polite greetings and nods, Alex felt the familiar surge of confidence. The presentation began smoothly. Alex's voice was clear and assured, his arguments sharp and data-driven. He navigated through market analyses, growth projections, and risk assessments with a fluidity that impressed even his colleagues. The clients listened attentively, occasionally exchanging whispers or jotting down notes. Alex's heart raced, not with fear, but with the exhilaration of control. However, as the discussion shifted to the finer details of the proposed deal, a subtle tension rippled through the room. One of the clients, a senior executive with a keen eye, raised a question about a particular clause in the contract, something Alex had skimmed over in his preparation, assuming it was standard and uncontroversial. The clause involved a critical financial metric tied to performance benchmarks, and its interpretation could significantly impact the client's risk exposure. Alex fumbled momentarily, searching his memory and notes for clarity. He had overlooked a key variable in the calculations, a detail buried deep in the fine print that altered the projections. The realization hit him like a cold wave. The numbers he had presented were incomplete, potentially misleading. A bead of sweat traced down his temple as the room's atmosphere shifted from cordial to cautious. The client's expression hardened, their questions more pointed. Alex tried to recover, offering explanations and assurances, but the gap in his presentation was now glaringly obvious. His colleagues exchanged worried glances, the confidence that had filled the room earlier dissipating. The meeting ended abruptly, with promises to review the details further before proceeding. Back at the office, the fallout was immediate. Alex's boss summoned him to a private meeting, the air thick with disappointment. The critique was sharp and unambiguous, a failure to verify crucial information that had cost the firm a significant opportunity. Colleagues who had once regarded him with respect now avoided eye contact, their conversations tinged with a new wariness. The loss of the deal was more than a professional setback, it was a blow to Alex's carefully constructed identity. He had always been the one to anticipate challenges, to control every variable. This mistake was a crack in the armor, exposing vulnerability he had long denied. The pressure to cover up or deflect blame was strong, but Alex felt a different impulse, an urgent need to confront the reality head-on. In the days that followed, sleepless nights became frequent. Alex pored over the contract, dissecting every clause and figure, trying to understand how he had missed such a critical detail. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, accompanied by a growing sense of isolation. He found himself withdrawing from colleagues, avoiding conversations that might reveal his inner turmoil. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a part of Alex stirred, a quiet voice urging him to acknowledge his mistake openly. The arrogance that had once fueled his confidence now felt like a barrier to growth. He wrestled with the shame and fear that came with admitting fault, knowing that doing so could jeopardize his reputation and future. One afternoon, summoned again by his boss, Alex chose a different path. Instead of deflecting or minimizing the error, he took full responsibility, outlining where he had erred and proposing steps to rectify the situation. The room was tense, but his honesty broke through the initial frustration. His boss's expression softened, acknowledging the courage it took to own the mistake. This moment marked the beginning of a difficult but necessary reckoning. Alex realized that his impatience and overconfidence had blinded him to the importance of meticulous review and collaboration. The loss of the deal was not just a failed transaction, it was a wake-up call challenging the foundations of his approach. While the professional consequences lingered, a shift began within Alex. The experience forced him to confront the limits of control and the cost of unchecked ambition. Though the path ahead was uncertain, he sensed that true growth would require humility and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. As he returned to his apartment that evening, the trophies and certificates seemed less like symbols of triumph and more like reminders of a journey unfinished. The city lights twinkled beyond the window, indifferent to his internal struggle. Yet, in that quiet moment, Alex felt the stirrings of change, a flicker of awareness that the life he had built on certainty and success might need to evolve in ways he had never imagined. In the weeks following the presentation debacle, Alex Turner found himself navigating an unfamiliar terrain, one marked not by deals and data, but by reflection and vulnerability. The initial sting of failure had given way to a gnawing awareness that his previous approach, rooted in control and confidence, was insufficient for the challenges he now faced. Seeking guidance, he reached out to a mentor, a seasoned executive named Martin, whose reputation for wisdom and empathy preceded him. Their first meeting was held in a quiet cafe nestled between towering office buildings, a stark contrast to the frenetic pace of Alex's usual environment. Martin's calm demeanor and attentive listening created a space where Alex felt, for the first time in a long while, unguarded. He spoke openly about the mistake, the pressures that had led to it, and the discomfort of admitting fault in a world that prized perfection. Martin nodded thoughtfully, sharing stories of his own missteps and the lessons they had taught him. He emphasized the power of vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as a bridge to authentic leadership and personal growth. Owning your story, Martin said, is the foundation for resilience. It's what transforms setbacks into stepping stones. Encouraged by this perspective, Alex began to explore avenues he had previously dismissed. He joined a support group composed of professionals grappling with similar struggles, ambition tempered by self-doubt, success shadowed by fear of failure. The sessions were raw and unfiltered, a stark departure from the polished interactions Alex was accustomed to. Sharing his experiences felt uncomfortable, even exposing, but each meeting chipped away at his armor. Through these gatherings, Alex discovered the universality of imperfection. He listened as others recounted their battles with pride, anxiety, and the relentless pursuit of approval. The collective vulnerability birthed a sense of connection that transcended titles and achievements. For Alex, this was a revelation, that strength could coexist with humility, and that admitting flaws did not diminish one's worth. Back at work, Alex applied these insights cautiously. When a routine team meeting turned tense over a missed deadline, he chose to speak frankly about his own recent miscalculations and the lessons he was learning. The response was unexpected. Colleagues offered empathy rather than judgment, and a constructive dialogue emerged. This openness fostered a collaborative atmosphere that had been missing before. A pivotal moment arrived during a project review when Alex faced his team with an honest account of the lost deal's impact. Instead of deflecting blame or glossing over details, he acknowledged his oversight and outlined concrete steps to prevent recurrence. The vulnerability in his admission resonated, breaking down barriers and inviting trust. In that meeting, Alex sensed a shift, not just in how others perceived him, but in how he saw himself. The need to maintain an unblemished image gave way to a commitment to authenticity and accountability. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Outside the office, Alex's personal life began to reflect this transformation. He reconnected with old friends, engaging in conversations that went beyond superficial updates. He embraced moments of quiet reflection, journaling his thoughts and fears in ways that allowed him to process rather than suppress. The restless edge that had once defined his nights softened, replaced by a tentative peace. Yet, the journey was far from linear. There were days when doubt crept back in, when the old habits of control and defensiveness tempted him. But each time, Alex reminded himself of the new path he was forging, a path that honored growth over perfection, connection over image. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside his apartment window, Alex sat alone with a cup of tea, contemplating the changes unfolding within him. The trophies on the wall remained, but their meaning had shifted. They were no longer mere symbols of success, but reminders of a journey punctuated by missteps and learning. He understood now that the true measure of strength lay not in flawless execution, but in the courage to face one's flaws and persevere. This awakening did not erase the challenges ahead, nor did it guarantee immediate redemption. But it planted a seed of hope and resilience, a belief that transformation was possible through honesty, humility, and the willingness to embrace discomfort. For Alex Turner, this was the beginning of a profound evolution, one that would redefine his relationship with success, failure, and himself. Over the months that followed, Alex Turner's life took on a new rhythm, less frenetic, more grounded. The transformation was neither sudden nor dramatic, but a steady progression shaped by intention and reflection. At work, he consciously shifted his approach, prioritizing transparency and empathy in every interaction. The change was subtle at first, an extra moment spent listening during meetings, a willingness to admit when he didn't have all the answers, but it gradually reshaped the dynamics around him. His team noticed. Where once there had been distance and guarded exchanges, now there was openness and collaboration. Alex found himself inviting feedback, encouraging diverse perspectives, and acknowledging his own limitations. This humility fostered a sense of trust that had been absent before, allowing ideas to flow more freely and challenges to be met collectively. One particular project exemplified this new approach. Tasked with leading a cross-departmental initiative, Alex deliberately sought input from colleagues whose expertise and viewpoints differed from his own. He held regular check-ins, not to assert control, but to understand concerns and celebrate progress. When obstacles arose, instead of assigning blame, he framed them as opportunities for learning and growth. The project, completed successfully, became a testament to the power of empathy and shared ownership. Outside the office, Alex's relationships deepened as well. He made time for friends and family, recognizing that connection was as vital to his well-being as professional achievement. Conversations were no longer surface-level exchanges, but meaningful dialogues where vulnerabilities could be shared without fear. These bonds provided support and perspective, reminding him that life's richness extended beyond spreadsheets and sales targets. Balancing ambition with compassion became a guiding principle. Alex still set high goals, driven by passion and purpose, but he tempered this drive with patience and understanding for himself and others. He learned to celebrate incremental progress, to embrace setbacks as part of the journey, and to approach challenges with curiosity rather than judgment. This evolution extended to his own self-perception. The once rigid narrative of success, defined solely by accolades and control, expanded to include growth, connection, and authenticity. Alex began to see strength not in perfection, but in resilience and integrity. He acknowledged his flaws without shame, recognizing them as integral to his humanity. A defining moment occurred during a company-wide meeting when Alex was invited to share his story. Standing before colleagues, he recounted his recent struggles and the lessons learned through vulnerability and accountability. His voice, steady and sincere, resonated with many who had faced similar pressures. The applause that followed was not just for his achievements, but for his courage in embracing imperfection. This act of openness further solidified Alex's role as a leader who inspired not through authority alone, but through example. He became a mentor to others navigating their own challenges, offering guidance grounded in experience and empathy. His office door, once closed tightly behind him, now stood open, welcoming those seeking advice or simply a listening ear. Through this ongoing journey, Alex discovered that true strength lay in owning one's story and persisting with integrity. The process was not without setbacks or doubts, but each step reinforced the value of authenticity over image. He realized that leadership was less about commanding and more about serving, creating spaces where others could thrive alongside him. As seasons changed outside his apartment window, Alex felt a profound shift within. The trophies on his wall remained, but their significance had transformed. They were no longer mere symbols of conquest, but markers along a path of continuous learning and connection. The city's pulse, once a backdrop to relentless ambition, now echoed the cadence of a life more balanced and purposeful. In quiet moments, Alex reflected on the journey that had brought him here, the mistake that had shaken his foundation, the courage to confront vulnerability, and the gradual embrace of empathy and authenticity. These experiences had reshaped not only his career, but his very sense of self. With each new day, Alex Turner moved forward not as a man defined by flawless success, but as one strengthened by resilience and guided by compassion. The path ahead was still unfolding, filled with challenges and opportunities alike. Yet, he faced it with renewed wisdom and bravery, ready to lead with both ambition and heart. Alex Turner sat across from Martin in the quiet corner of the office lounge, the city lights casting a soft glow through the expansive windows. Their conversation had meandered through months of change, challenges met, and lessons learned. Martin's steady gaze held a mixture of pride and understanding as he listened to Alex reflect on his journey, from the heights of ambition to the depths of vulnerability and back toward a renewed sense of purpose. "It's remarkable," Martin said finally, "how you've transformed not just your career, but your relationship with yourself and those around you. That shift from prideful certainty to purposeful leadership is what sets true leaders apart." Alex nodded, feeling the weight and warmth of those words. He had come to see that success was no longer a race or a tally of trophies, but a commitment to growth, connection, and balance. The relentless drive that once defined him had softened into a steady flame fueled by integrity and compassion. Embracing this new perspective, Alex had taken on a role beyond his previous ambitions, mentoring others navigating the complexities of professional and personal challenges. He shared his story openly, his mistakes, fears, and the courage it took to confront them. Through these conversations, he hoped to inspire resilience and authenticity, helping others find strength in vulnerability. This role felt natural, a way to give back and create meaning beyond individual achievement. Alex discovered fulfillment in guiding colleagues through their own setbacks, encouraging them to embrace imperfection as a catalyst for growth. The office atmosphere shifted subtly but noticeably, fostering a culture where accountability and empathy coexisted. Alex's definition of success had evolved to encompass more than just numbers or accolades. It now included the quality of relationships, the depth of self-awareness, and the capacity to lead with heart. He balanced ambition with patience, recognizing that meaningful progress often unfolded in incremental steps rather than grand leaps. As he walked through the familiar streets of Chicago one evening, the city's vibrant energy felt different, less a backdrop for conquest and more a mosaic of lives interconnected by shared struggles and triumphs. Alex's thoughts drifted to the past months, the moments of doubt and clarity that had shaped him. His apartment, once a shrine to control and achievement, now held symbols of this transformation. Among the trophies rested journals filled with reflections and notes from mentoring sessions. Photographs of friends and family adorned a shelf, reminders of the bonds that enriched his life beyond professional success. Alex understood that this journey was ongoing, a continuous process of learning and evolving. Challenges would arise, old doubts might resurface, but he was equipped with tools forged through experience, humility, courage, and compassion. In the quiet of that evening, as the city lights shimmered below, Alex felt a profound sense of awakening. He was no longer driven solely by external validation, but by an internal compass aligned with his values and purpose. This alignment brought a peace that had eluded him in the relentless pursuit of perfection. The future stretched ahead, filled with unknowns and possibilities. Yet, Alex faced it with confidence rooted not in invulnerability, but in authenticity. He was ready to lead with wisdom and bravery, embracing both successes and failures as integral parts of his journey. Through this transformation, Alex Turner discovered a truth that transcended professional titles and achievements, that true strength arises from the courage to be oneself, the willingness to grow through adversity, and the grace to uplift others along the way. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.